So yeah, we're on.
All right, perfect. Well, with that information, that is phone is being used as a fan. I used to use that app to go to sleep sometimes in the summertime when you're at friends' houses and stuff. I gotta have a fan in the background. Anyways, I'm
Exactly.
Sutton. It's typically Simmo and Sutton on Friday afternoons, and unfortunately, well, I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, our boy's doing some studying. He's got to get them grades so that he, can get the schoolings and stuff like that. So Simo's out this week, and I've got Ernesto, my boy from
What's up, man?
ITL, and it's a pleasure to actually be the host for once and let you just kind of sit back, kick back, and relax, my dude.
It's nice on this side of the screen. I don't have to be prepping and looking on two screens at once. So appreciate to be on. And I could never replace Simo, but I am honored to be sitting in his spot.
Yeah, shout out to our boy. Yeah, like I said, he's trying to get the edumacations, so I'm happy for him. And he's got, I think he said he had like 3 tests that he's studying for and stuff like that. I don't personally miss that aspect of life anymore. I'm glad I'm probably one of the older guys in our group, but that woohoo!
Well, Steve's like 50, so
Yeah, yeah. That was funny. Shout out to DL, our boy that came onto the pod over on ITL, and basically said he was like, I really like that old guy. And I was like, well, what old guy was on our podcast last week? And he's like, oh, that Steve guy. He sounds like he's got a Boston accent. I'm like, he's younger than me. Oh, but nonetheless, man, it's great to have you on here. And Simo, wherever you are, get your grades. Hopefully you're crushing it. We'll see you next week, buddy. We're gonna get into a few topics as we always do, but we can't do so without first saying thank you to our sponsors at thrivefantasy.com. If you got some prop bets that you want to put on this weekend, let me tell you, there's some good football action going on. We kind of broke it down on ITL. Man, make your bids. Thrivefantasy.com. Enter the code BCMG. They'll match your first $20. We call that here playing with the house money. So make sure to do so. Ernesto, what's going on over there, brother? How's Texas?
San Antonio was pretty nice all week. It was just kind of a cool breeze in the lower part. We still had the sun out, but today it's been super rainy, and I'm actually making a drive after this episode. So, looking forward to that drive down south to Brownsville. Actually, might go to get myself some Taquito Express. So,
Buddy, don't
yep,
do that to me while I'm on here.
yep, I might just do that.
We were just talking about weight losses because we're on a little bit of a challenge between myself, Paul, co-founder, and Kenny Cotterell, as well as co-founder. And man, you know what I honestly miss? And I could honestly go for these so bad. It's just some smothered burritos, bro. Oh my God.
Okay, so talk to me. What's a smothered burrito? Because that sounds interesting.
Hey, you've never had one?
No.
Okay,
We hardly use the word burrito down in Texas.
Yeah, I guess that's a real Canadian authentic thing. So a smothered burrito in Canada is basically, just your normal taco burrito type style wrap, right? And then you cover it in like almost a tomato salsa base, and then you bake it with cheese on top.
I mean, that sounds good. I can't go wrong with the ingredients.
Massive unrealness.
Can't go wrong with the ingredients.
No, your like waistline is just super furious by the time you're done with it. But yeah, man, I could just go for a slew of those. So what is Taquito Express? Explain to me the building, because you've been there.
Yes. So the Taquito Express is in this shopping center, right? And it's got like a regular taqueria feel to it. But when you go in there, you get your own table, you get to sit down, and you just say, hey, I want a slab of 4 to 6 tacos of whatever I want with whatever inside of it. And it starts off at $7.99, and then you order whatever you want. And then as you're finishing them up, the waiter or waitress comes up and says, you ready for another slab? And you're like, yeah, let's do it. And so if you could challenge and try to beat the record, and you get your tacos for free. Like I think the record's like 84. And they're not like small tacos either. They're like
4 tacos?
Yeah, the guy just went at it.
Buddy's the Joey Chestnut of fucking tacos, man.
I know, what? Yeah. So yeah, and then they have tons of other stuff. Like you can get queso flameado, which is flaming cheese and with chorizo mix in it, and everybody always gets the desserts and yeah, just the food. Like you don't eat breakfast. You go there for lunch. You don't eat dinner because you just can't. You're just stuffed, and you only spend like $12. Like it's like the best thing ever made.
Man, you have converted me into Taquito Express. I gotta go.
And this place, and they said they're gonna put a stage up for us, so we might as well just make it a whole big event. Make it a whole big event.
Hey, waiter, can we get just an honest mess of tacos?
Exactly. Yeah.
Just keep them coming.
Just keep our plates out in front of us, and we'll just keep show after show after show, and just stay live the entire day and nonstop eating.
What happened? Well, couple guys we lost the meat sweats. A couple guys are in a food coma. No big deal. But anyways, guys, Simmo and Sutton, just like a free, fun little thing that we do here on Blue Collar Media Group. The mothership, the mega ship, the motherboard that produces some great content like ITL, Boomtown Pod, all of these great Shooter Shoot podcast, Frostbite. We got a ton of great things. Make sure to go to bluecollarmg.com and check out all the pods because they're all on there. Shout out to all of our people on it because man, we got some great people. And our boy is doing a live stream right now. Is he not? He's got a couple hours left.
Yep. Yes, he is. He's got 2 hours and 40 minutes. You can go get yourself a free gift card. Go get a free HBO Max subscription. I mean, he's giving away so many stuff with all his affiliations. So go out there, twitch.tv/BLZZY __. That's twitch.tv/BLZZY _ part of the BCMG stream team. So yeah, some great stuff. And he's, if I didn't even mention, he's streaming Cyberpunk. So Cyberpunk, if you want to see the hype,
looks unreal.
Yeah, go check it out. Definitely go check it out.
I'm not much of a gamer, but honestly, I watched about an hour or two of his cast, and I was like, man, I need to get this game. This thing looks for real. Plus, Canadian content, Keanu Reeves. That's what I'm talking about.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. How can you go wrong? Okay, so let's break it down into a little bit. We got some topics here for you guys. Man, I'm looking forward to discussing some things when it comes to the Houston Rockets with our boy that we have on here because, boy, they are just an interesting case, man. We're going to talk about the NFC East after this weekend. Why are people sleeping on the Sixers? Then we got a little bit of Raptors report, the Rams route of the Patriots, and are the Patriots in trouble? So here we go. First question, because you are the Rockets guy. James Harden, bro, what is going on?
Yeah, I guess that's the big question, right? Is what are we doing in H-Town? Do we have a problem in Houston? I'm glad you brought this up, Andrew, because when it comes to the Houston Rockets, there's nobody better to really kind of dissect what they're doing than moi. So game day today. So I think the biggest thing is that we get to see the new Rockets basketball and see what our pieces look like. But James Harden has been a couple question marks here and there and people making up rumors and stuff. So I thought I'd clear the air and let's get some insider knowledge from some of the front office people that I know and clear it up. So from what I understand, James Harden's been doing individual workouts all week, right? Finally got to do an individual workout today with a couple of key players on the side running plays. And about 15 minutes ago, we got confirmation PJ Tucker was one of those players that was practicing with James Harden today. So he's obviously had a few negative tests that we haven't heard about, but he's almost there to being completely cleared. He wants to play for a contender, and his true issue is that he doesn't believe he can get there in the West. And that's been the issue. And Daryl Morey said the exact same thing 5 years ago, is that, he wished he could get the Rockets some way into the Eastern Conference because it's just stacked in the West. And there's just arguably 10 teams that can compete to get a Western Conference final spot and then move on. And so he was frustrated with that. And with Mike D'Antoni definitely leaving, really, that's kind of his compadre with everything, right? Trying to keep the ball in his hands. Steven Silas is trying to infiltrate more of a ball movement system. He wasn't sure if that was going to work. So just a lot of trust issues with James Harden and the Rockets, but he doesn't help his case. He's making it rain money in the clubs instead of raining threes at practice, and that doesn't help your case. It doesn't help your case as to you want to be a contender. Big thing is that the Houston Rockets did everything they could to keep James Harden this offseason. Got rid of Russ. Russ wanted to be a focal point. Got rid of him. Brought in John Wall, who plays with Harden in the summers. Brought in DeMarcus Cousins, who plays with Harden in the summers. Brought in Christian Wood, who plays with Harden in the summers. Brought back Gerald Green, who's good friends with James Harden. Kept PJ, his confidant. Eric Gordon, his confidant. I mean, everything, this whole roster, everything has always been about James Harden. So I'm not surprised that when he asked for a trade that they just tell him no right away. But I mean, that's kind of the way it is. They got to build that trust up with Harden. He's got to see how this team can win together, especially with what I say is probably an arguably first half cupcake season. A couple tough games in the beginning, but you can arguably say the Rockets should probably be 25 wins deep come All-Star break. And for many people, they think more. So I just think if you're James Harden, what are you thinking with the club business? Other than the fact that they already had the agreement before he went off for the weekend, then I don't know why he would go and make that trip.
It just seems so selfish. Like you've got a lot of guys that are coming into the lineup. Like you said, you got Boogie, you got you got John Wall that obviously have just transferred over to Houston. And I was watching that highlight clip that you posted this morning, and Boogie looks like a beast again, which should scare a lot of people, man. He looked like he was reboarding like crazy. So, I mean, that should be a good sign. And I mean, if I'm James Harden, man, listen, like you alluded to, everybody that has been brought into that system, that organization, dude, is for you. So for the fact that you would rather go out clubbing, to me, instead of being with your teammates, baffles me. Like, it actually blows my mind.
Right. And I know a lot of stars like to take the first couple of days
Right.
of training camp and they don't show up. Maybe they go do their own thing for a while, go at their own pace. But from what I understand, it's that he had the agreement he was going to go out to this birthday bash weekend, and the NBA COVID rules came out while he was on that trip.
Okay.
So the misconstrue is that, oh, he got those rules and he went anyways. Well,
It's not a Lou
quite.
Williams type thing.
Not quite. He was actually in Atlanta Thursday before the Saturday the NBA rules were released about COVID, how you have to have 2 tests for every night you go out. And so he had already had these plans. So Houston to ask him, hey, come back with everything going on. He probably was like, nah, I'll just see you after the week. It's not like we have any games this week. So I can see that. But to say that James Harden isn't a diva, well,
Well,
you have to really, I'd have to hear it from him. You have to really convince me.
Yeah. And the other thing that I found really appalling was that video that somebody tagged. I think somebody just saw James Harden in the streets just chilling. And when I think it was maybe a security guy, and he was just like, shut the fuck up. I was like, oh man, calm down. The guy's just asking where you at, because his teammates are on the court and you ain't there, bro. Like,
yeah,
as a spectator and a fan, I feel like you're allowed to ask that question. I mean, it wasn't really doing anything, and the security guard just went off the rails. I was like, buddy, like, this is what you signed up for, that you are the face of a franchise. These questions are going to come from you, from whether it be fans, media, teammates, man. There's got to be teammates on it. Like, if I'm Boogie and John Wall, who just got thrown over there and just accepted deals over there, I'd be like, hey, man, we came here for you. Where the fuck you at?
Right. And that's got to be the actual like hidden light at the end of the tunnel, right? These guys would never agree to sign in Houston and play.
Not at all.
Christian Wood would never sign. John Wall wouldn't say yes to be traded if they hadn't talked to Harden. If those convos didn't happen. So you got to think as a fan, okay, there's got to be some conversation there. I just think Harden really doesn't trust Tillman Fertitta to pay the extra money to grab pieces, and he doesn't trust the coaching system yet. That's pretty much it.
I just don't know how much else an owner is supposed to prove to a guy to be like, hey man, I'm doing everything you want. Like, I got a team based around you, dude.
That's true, but he does dodge a luxury tax like he owes somebody child support. You look at the Golden State
baby. That ain't my baby.
Right. Look at the Golden State Warriors, like, right? I mean, they're like paying another team's salary.
Yeah, that's a lot of money that they're paying. It's ridiculous. Anyways, let's move on into some football conversation. If you don't know, I'm wearing the hat. Clearly, I am a Dallas Cowboy fan. Although, if you watched ITL, yes, or 2 days ago, you would have realized that I went on a bit of a spree, which I got called out for. But hey, now, listen, this has been a frustrating season in the NFC East. And after this weekend, man, there's some really big matchups when it comes to potentially having a home game. And let's face it, as crappy as the NFC East has been, they're getting a home game, folks.
Yep.
So, it's I feel like it's a two-headed race at this point, between the Giants and, of course, the Washington football team. I don't think there's anybody else in that division that, like maybe Philly goes on a run with Jalen Hurts. Don't see it happening.
No.
The Cowboys are in absolute trouble right now. They need the draft picks, to be honest, after the season. And I'm washing my hands clean of that playoff slate. I don't want it. I don't want it. I just want a better top 10 pick. That's where I'm at. Ernest, what would you say has been the biggest downfall to the NFC East this year?
I think it's injuries, and more injuries, because I think of the healthy Dak Prescott, the Cowboys maybe are closer to 500 than they are, because they're obviously disappointing on the defensive side of the ball. But I wanted to talk about the NFC East because very interesting weekend, right? You have the Washington football team playing San Francisco 49ers team that's not a pushover, but that we swept pick on ITL that everybody doesn't want to claim they're confident about. So if you're not confident about it and Washington loses, and New York's playing Arizona, and again, not a gimme game for New York whatsoever, especially because Colt McCoy is probably starting again, as we hear Danny Dimes is actually going to be out tomorrow. So with that being said, if both the Giants and Washington football team lose, and I'm predicting the Cowboys to beat the Bengals, we're back in the same boat where the
Ugh,
Cowboys are a game back from winning this division again
I
with
hate
a
it.
cupcake ending with, the I think at the end of the
The
year we
hardest
have
thing you got is the Giants. Or
New York and Philly,
yeah,
right? And so taking on Jalen Hurts, that doesn't scare me as a Cowboys fan. So again, we said 6 games wins the division,
it's
and
gonna.
the Cowboys literally could win out and win this
Oh
division. And that's kind of and I'm not doing it from a psychotic Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl standpoint. I'm coming from a realistic one. The Cowboys literally will be the favorites in 2 of 3 games other than the Giants. And if Colt McCoy's playing, they'll be a favorite in that game too.
yeah,
And so that's kind of the realistic part. But Washington football team's the best team out of the NFC East, I think, just because they had a stack full of quarterbacks they could choose from, and they have the defensive line that wins every trench battle so far, not only a division but with other big games. That I think the football team would be the best representation for the East. I'm not a big fan of Danny Dimes, so don't get me wrong. I'm a fan of Colt McCoy, so I like Colt McCoy, but he's not the better quarterback. But I'll swear up and down if he keeps winning that he's the better quarterback. So I'll keep that going. But if you're Philadelphia, man, you are just disgusted. The
ugh,
fact that your wide receiver core could never come about, the fact that Doug Peterson may be just gone and Carson Wentz has just been bad, and your offensive line has not been fantastic either. So just all the way around, you have to think as a Philly fan, we don't exactly have to hit the reset button. We got to find our stride and figure out our chemistry. I think that's a big part is a lot of change with Philly and Dallas. You would think more continuity with Philly, but injuries just always every year for Philly, it's injuries. I mean, I think we joked about it, but they had 32
they're
guys on the
consistent.
injury list to start the year. Like, what is going on in
Yeah,
Philly? Like that just, yeah. But football team's probably the best team right now in the NFC East.
I would say that the Cowboy season was in jeopardy the second Gerald McCoy was announced before training camp that he was hurt.
Yeah,
We needed that stop guy. Gerald McCoy was going to be a very big presence because Randy Gregory was still suspended. And of course, you got Alden Smith, who I'm not going to poop on Alden Smith. He's a very good football player, but you can tell now in the later half of the year, he was a stud in the first half. The later half of the year now, you can tell a guy who's been out of football for 5 years. He's showing up. DeMarcus Lawrence has been paid a lot of money, hasn't shown up in too many games. There's been a couple where you're like, all right, D Lawrence, let's go. Like you look noticeable out there. And then, last game when you need him the most, he just disappears, Leighton Vander Esch has been banged up this year. Jalen Smith, I don't know if he's still 100%. He looks really rusty against the run, man. It looks like he has a hard time adjusting to when people are you making quick cuts and stuff like that, which
right.
again, folks, he's not even supposed to be playing football. So, I mean, Jalen Smith is a comeback story for anyone that has a horrible, horrific injury like he had in university, right? Like that was
It was
nasty.
nasty. Yeah. It was a
So
big flyer by the Cowboys to even draft him.
in the second round, like
Yeah.
that's what I was when I was like, yeah, I know this kid's a baller, but like, ooh, you're really flexing there, and it's paid off. I mean, Jalen Smith is a great football player. Just I think he's a little decimated having to play so much football because again, with LVE being out and Sean Lee being out for the first 7 weeks of the year, they really relied on him, and he's burnt out now. And I think that's a huge reason as to why they're struggling against the run. Plus, the secondary, you go and draft Trayvon Diggs, who again, great start to the first half of the year, and now hurt. It's just injuries
Right.
have decimated everyone. And again, when you lose, I think if you look at the Cowboys in that perspective, Dak Prescott is a leader. Okay. And you take that leadership out, and everybody looks lost out there. They really do. I
It
mean,
does.
for Zeke, I feel like Dak is almost like a security blanket. It's like, that's my boy, like our chemistry. We've been in the league since day one together. And Zeke got paid a lot of money and hasn't been able to step up the same way that Dak would in that locker room either. And you can tell, like, I mean, the whole team just looks lost. You saw that game against the Ravens. Like, I'll give Andy Dalton props. I mean, he kept us in the game. Zerline misses 3 field goals. We're talking about a 4-point game going into the fourth
Right.
quarter. Like it's just, I feel like this team has been decimated by bad luck. It's just a bad luck season, and every team is due for one. We've had one. The Washington football team, I will say this. I have been saying it all year on ITL since I've started. That defense is going to continue to be a problem for many of years to come.
Yep.
That is disgusting, that defense. Montez Sweat and Chase Young are going to be, I don't want to say future Hall of Famers because that's a very bold claim in their first years, but the way they're playing, man, when you got coaches like Mike Tomlin saying there's a reason we don't lose, so we can't draft guys like you.
Right.
That's a good thing to be complimented by. It seems like an underhanded, backhanded compliment, but like, he's not wrong. Like, you don't want to be the team that, he's very good. Chase Young is a beast out there. And I think defensively, they have more to give, and I think they'll end up winning this division. The Cowboys, like you said, do have a very favorable schedule coming up here. Cincinnati is also decimated with injuries. They don't have Joe Burrow. If Joe Burrow was playing, I would take the Bengals by 12 million. Like it's just,
I mean, yeah, I mean, absolutely, but they don't
you
have
know,
a quarterback.
no.
Their quarterback, Finley, is not going to be doing anything for them.
But for the Cowboys, I mean, they got to really rely on stopping Giovanni Bernard. And I joked about him getting 300 yards, but there hasn't been a running back that hasn't
Which,
put up 100. I
which
mean,
I'm okay with because he's my fantasy back. But
yeah, I do
you
in
just
another
can't
league.
score. You just get 300 yards, just don't score.
The Giants, again, Colt McCoy is such a good game management guy. He knows how to run the clock. He knows how to be a smart quarterback. You're not going to get a ton of yards out of the boy, but he knows how to work an offense and knows how to keep a defense on the field. Right. Wayne Gallman's beasted out since Saquon's been gone, which helps, again, eat clock, man. That's a Giants. If you watch a Giants game, they're not fancy. They're not a good football team, but they eat clock. And as a fan, it's got to be frustrating and awesome all at the same time to watch that team. And the other thing I'll say that Bradbury has been one of the best corners in the league. Like he is one of the best shutdown corners in the NFL. And the fact that you got this guy rolling right now, ask anybody. I mean, he held DeAndre Hopkins to 30 yards or something like that. It was insane. Like he's very underrated and very underappreciated. And Jabril Peppers, I will add, has all of a sudden turned out to be a football player. You know, like I didn't have any thoughts on this guy. Like obviously in Michigan, he was a Swiss utility knife, right? He was used for every aspect of that field. Then he goes into Cleveland and just doesn't fit what they're trying to do. They trade him over to the Giants and it took him a year, but now he's finally getting, I think, the gist of how they want to run the defense. And that's scary if you can get Peppers, a free safety, to be as good as he was in university, because he was a stud in Michigan. So yeah, it's an interesting division, man. It really is. I'm not going to talk about Philly too much. Their biggest situation is going to be cap this year and what to do in the cap situation, because let's face it, they have Carson Wentz, who is going to be $54 million on the books next year. And you're going to start a backup quarterback right now over him. So man, it's interesting times in the NFC East. So I will ask you this prediction time. Who ends up first? Who got the playoff game?
Washington football team will be there. And I'll even go on a limb and say Washington wins it. Wins their home game.
Okay. That's not a hot take. I think that's their defense, man, is scary good. Like they beat an undefeated team. Let's not forget that. And everybody's like, well, the Steelers are rolling. No one's going to stop the Steelers. And shout out to Paul and our boy, Just Luke. But like it, honestly, like you knew it was coming. You knew a beatdown was coming, and that defense, man, gave it to him. And shout out to Washington. So let's get into some other topics here. The NFC East, we both agree Washington's moving on.
Yeah.
Our boy Simmo, he is a fantastic human being. Diehard Sixers fan. I got a question, because it seems very weird that we are sleeping on how good the Sixers are. True or false?
True. I think everybody is sleeping on how good the Philadelphia Sixers are roster-wise, chemistry-wise, and the fact that you got the mastermind Daryl Morey now in the Eastern Conference. So yes, I think everybody's sleeping on them.
Yeah. Well, who do you say that the season really relies on? Is it Simmons? Does he have to put up like a 16 and 10 kind of year for him to really put them over the edge, or learning how to shoot a jump shot? Maybe I don't know. What do you think is the biggest X factor for them to make it this year? I
think it's going to be whoever's in the backcourt for Philly, because we don't know if Simmons is going to be there, right? Yeah. Simmons may be in Houston for all we know, and it may be a Harden Embiid situation in Philly. But if you take their roster the way they have it, Daryl Morey chased a bunch of guys. Danny Green, Dwight Howard making resurgent efforts with Daryl Morey, put them in the roster from championships there. Danny Green said it himself. I've won 2 finals in a row, so it's really up to everybody else to show up because he's on a roll right now. And it's true, man. I mean, take the Brandon Cooks effect, right? So, but no, I think it's going to be all about how much Embiid is going to progress and be able to include his guards around him as much as he can to his game, because Embiid, I think all around is a phenomenal top 5 player at the post. I could arguably say he's probably number 1 or 2 big men. Yeah, big men wise. Yeah. And so with Nikola Jokic being probably the other guy I'm debating talent wise with the ball and handling. But Embiid is your focal point for Philly. And I was at the ESPN Sports Analytics Conference this past March, and Chris Remick and I, we were there together, and we heard the panel where, Philly management said if we had to choose between Embiid and Simmons, we choose Embiid. The fact that you're having those conversations means that you're not sold that team can make it together with those two figure points. So I think to answer the question, right, I've danced all around it. Embiid's the guy that if you sleep on, but I think the key pieces like Green, Howard, Curry are all focal points that are going to push the team over. Yeah.
Yeah, they got a decent roster over there, man. Like I think people are sleeping on that. For me, a lot of teams have bench depth, and the 76ers definitely have that this year, which is something that's kind of eluded them in the past. So, man, it'll be interesting to see. I think they obviously are going to be up there in the division. No.
Well, Andrew, like I asked on ITO and everybody mocked me, but okay, talent wise on the roster, where do you rank Philly?
Well, you look at if we're going paper.
Paper.
They're probably like a three or two team, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. On paper, they're
on paper, but again, I got to see Ben Simmons, man. Like I keep hearing everybody tell me that he's this top 20 player, top 25 player. Man, he's not even in my top 30. Like he's just inconsistent, man. And in order to be in the top 20 basketball conversation, you've got to be consistent every year. And in the playoffs, you can't disappear. Like you've got to be the vocal point there.
Yeah, but you could say the same thing about Giannis.
Giannis is the same. I mean, the Raptors help the 9 points a game.
Yeah, I mean, he disappears in the playoffs. But I think he put a lot of potential into Simmons, right? He hasn't even hit his prime. Kid's young.
I'm ready to watch him develop for sure. I'm ready for it. You know?
And I'm not going to go this far, but I've heard tons of analysts say, if Simmons develops a jump shot, it's LeBron 2.0. I'm not there yet.
No, I'm
not there yet. I don't know. I don't know why we're pushing that, but no, I'm not there yet. All I know is that Simmons can be a top 15 player in this league if he develops a jump shot. Even if he just develops a three, doesn't even develop a mid-range, he could be a jump shot. And maybe under this new regime, he will. But Philly, I wanted to bring up Philly not only for Simmo, but I wanted to bring up Philly because it's important to recognize that Philly's got the most consistent roster of stars coming back, and with their turnover of new talent, that's a dangerous team. If Brooklyn wasn't having KD coming back, we'd be talking Philly all over again. And what are their chances of representing the East? So just heads up.
Speaking of Brooklyn, let's get into this because
the
boys have been vibing on this one. Kyrie Irving poking the bear again, man. This guy,
of course,
dude, it's almost at the point where like I read these things and I want to be shocked or surprised, but it's Kyrie Irving, and I'm just kind of done with his bullshit. Like if I'm somebody on his roster right now, okay, Kyrie Irving is a very talented point guard, one of the best. That series where Cleveland won, I always say that not enough credit was given to Kyrie because he was very, very good. But at this point, when he opens his mouth and he's not on the court, it's just like, oh man. So if you're a teammate of his right now and you read that quote, what do you think of Kyrie Irving?
I'm just kind of like, when will it end? Right? Like, I'm so tired of hearing Kyrie Irving and some bogus headline from Flat Earth to not wearing masks to a hoax. Like, okay, is this just a headline grabber? I mentioned Harden Diva, but Kyrie Diva is the same question here that I present to people. If you're Brooklyn, you are frustrated. And honestly, if Houston says send me Kyrie, we send you Harden, I don't know why you haven't jumped on that already and just sent all your pieces with Kyrie and 3 first. Give me Harden and KD and build around that. I would have done that in a heartbeat. Of course, that's coming from a Rockets fan, but I would have done that in a heartbeat. But Kyrie's latest mockery is just kind of how you grab NBA Twitter 17 and younger year olds. It's just who's going to go ahead and just stream all the stupidity that comes out of his mouth. And not to mention, I think LeBron James just lives rent free in that mind, man.
Dude, he's there.
He's just there constantly.
There since 17, man.
I mean, just get it out of there. It's just time to move on.
Bron he owns that mind. He ain't renting. He owns that mind. he's just never been the same. Let's face it. When LeBron jumped in 18, I mean, Kyrie was by himself, and how bad was that team in Cleveland?
Absolutely.
And I will also say this for Kyrie's defense, I'd be pissed. I just lost the guy that like is the best player in the NBA, and now I've got a bunch of scrubs in myself. Like I got treated badly in that situation. He got boo-booed. Like that was a bad situation. Like here's an over-expired, done as toast Kevin Love, and nobody else on the team.
I mean, but that's what LeBron does, right? I mean, with AD, we're all claiming how AD couldn't got past the first round one time in his career, and he wasn't a playoff player, and he was great. He was great all around in the regular
right.
season, and then he goes with LeBron, and now ESPN puts out their stupid 100 list, and
Oh,
they have him 1-2 in
clickbait.
top 100. Like, okay, come on, guys. I know we're talking about it now, which is just feeding them, but come on, guys, really? Like
We are
that's ridiculous.
at this point. We've pumped LA's tires.
Yeah,
I know Kenny Cotterill. Shout out to you, buddy. You were on the train before all of them came over, and that's fine. I like that. I respect that. But man, LeBron's. And I hate saying this, man, but he brings ring chasers with him. He really does. Any place he's gone to, he brings same thing. Like when Chris Bosh was in Toronto,
right.
we got to the playoffs twice. Could never do it. He was never going to be the guy. And
Right.
just where did he go? Miami, because LeBron's like, hey man, you're good. I'm good. Like Dwayne Wade's pretty good, so let's go out and win a championship or two. Like it's just he's always had a guy, AD, like Kyrie, like the list. We could go on
Kevin.
about guys,
Yeah.
that really have helped LeBron James cement arguably the second greatest player of all time status. Right?
Andrew, I got a question for you. How many teams in 2 years are tanking for Braun and Bronny?
Oh boy, that's a scary
Half
combo.
the league?
Half the
Are we
league.
are we are we saying 9,
Oh,
12?
what's we're talking next? Not next year, but the year after,
Yeah,
right?
2023,
2022.
2024. So you're gonna think not this season, not the following. Yeah, not
Oh,
this season, but the following. Yeah, how many teams are tanking for the one spot to get
and how
Bronny and
many
get Braun?
and how many people make the trades to get both? Like you might see
There
the
you
first
go.
time you might see it the first time in NBA history where somebody trades next year's pick and a couple other picks and a player to get the 1-2 because boy oh boy, that is gonna be
You
that is
want you
gonna
want me to
be
tell you?
unreal, man.
I got you right here, and this is a shout out to Davis Cordova. There's one guy playing for it, Sam Presti.
OKC, babe.
Sam Presti's got stockpile galore to
Oh,
pair
TM
up
picks, man.
Braun and Bronny to end the career for LeBron James. Try to bring one to OKC. Guarantee it.
If they do get Braun and Bronny, oh my Lanta Lord, man, that team is going to be scary good. But yeah, you're right. Sam Presti has what 19 first overall picks in the next
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever the hell it may be. But like he's, we all laugh at Davis because he's got some real weird hot takes at times. But that is one take that I will say to him. Sam Presti is a very smart GM. He knew that the team was imploding and big contracts and stuff like that need to get off the books in order to rebuild. And Sam Presti might be ahead of us and saying, well, guess what, guys? I got leverage when it comes to Braun and Bronny. So we'll see what happens there. Two just announced the quote that people might not know what we were talking about. Kyrie Irving went on Instagram today, and first was the legendary Malcolm X quote. And then he goes, I pray we utilize the fine money for the marginalized communities in need, especially seeing where our world is presently. I am here for peace, love, and greatness. So stop distracting me and my team and appreciate the art. We move different over here. I do not talk to pawns. My attention is worth more. Buddy, I don't know what school teaches you things. I can't remember the high school he went to, but they really need to prepare this young boy for a lot more because let's face it, when you are a celebrity figure, my friend, you are under the spotlight. Like you have no other options. You signed up for this, you got paid for this, and now you are obligated to talk to media. So if you don't want to talk to media, boy, it's not going to work out in Brooklyn when they got that dream team they assembled over there. So one more take. Is Kyrie's days numbered? Just even in the NBA. Like I know he's good, but like how many other teams are going to take this shit?
No, they take him. I mean, if we're going to see the resurgence of IT over and over again, we're definitely going to see Kyrie until he retires. But I will say this: wherever he went to school, I do want to take a couple classes just to understand how you can teach somebody to think that way. Because he's would be a gold mine on my podcast and on our shows. He would be awesome. He would draw so many followers. So he's got a future definitely in media.
we love to have hot takes here, but that guy might be hot take central. Yeah, I do not talk to pawns. My attention is worth more, buddy. Shut your mouth, play the game. When you're done in the game, talk to the media, do your obligatory objections and get it over with and just shut up.
That interview would have been great in the NBA finals before talking to the media and saying, shutting everybody up. That would have been a great conversation at the podium before your game one of the NBA finals, but it's preseason. You haven't even won anything. Go win something.
Yeah. And you're not even sure what you're going to look like with Brooklyn. Like, we know we have the talent. We know they have the talent. But even in our group chat, we're talking about it today a little bit, with Kevin Durant coming back. How good is he going to be again? Because if you watch that NBA Finals against the Raptors, that thing blew up in your face. Like, the ACL was literally blown up. You could see it like a balloon, just poof. Yep. And I was like, oh, that ain't good. So how devastating is that? Because that's his second one. So, I mean, how do you think he does this year?
I think he returns to top 15 player. I don't think he's going to be top 3. I know everybody's saying, KD's one of a kind. I think shooting wise, he'll be top 3. I don't think that's going to go down because his shooting has been with him his entire life. But athleticism, stamina, amount of minutes per game, being able to play back to backs, the playoff series are going to wear and tear on him. Hopefully I'm sure he'll be in better shape by then, but, and I probably shouldn't say anything about shape, but when it comes to KD, I'm sure he'll be somewhere around the top 15, top 10 when it comes to output statistically, but you're going to treat him like he's a top 3 player. Like, that's just how every defense is going to treat him. And so that's why I think he'll regress a little bit. But playing on that, he looks decent in his individual workouts. Watch some of the film from early training camp practices, and it don't look bad. So, I mean, I know Boogie Cousins look like an all-star, so I know those can just do so wonders. So, but we will see how these players shape up starting today. We get to see him on the court.
Yeah, who went up to get the rebound against Boogie there and ended up dying on the floor?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. But then that person, I think it was David Nwaba, but that guy got leveled. Ooh, whoever it was.
Back it up. You ain't making the roster, bro. Starting day ain't looking too promising. Holy,
probably Jesus, a rook. Probably a
rook. Dude. Anyways, while we're sticking to the hardwood, I want to talk about this because being the Canadian guy in an American-dominated group over here, of course, the Raptors went into the draft knowing that Kyle Lowry is probably done after this year. I feel like they're gearing up to run with Freddie and our newest draft pick, Malachi Flynn, who averaged 17 in the Unity League and NCAA. And here's the thing. Malachi Flynn there's reports have been coming out through our Canadian media that he looks really good, which is making me so happy. But that's because I feel like he's going to flourish in a Nick Nurse system, right or wrong?
Absolutely right. I think Nick Nurse, I don't know if it was you or Kenny, shout out to Kenny again, said Nick Nurse is a top 3 head coach for the talent he has around him. I absolutely agree. Nick Nurse in that system will make Malachi Flynn look like a baller this season. And I'm very high on the Raptors this year. You guys scared me off of it. I had the Raptors in my top 4 for East. Then everybody was preaching other systems, but
I had it before. I had to represent.
Yeah, that's right. You did have them. You're the only person I was like, well, okay, they got represented, but Raptors are always sneaky good in the regular season. Just need that star to continue to grow. But no, I'm completely on the Flynn train. And the amount of exposure he's going to have in that system is fantastic because he's going to.
Well, it's already. I mean, it's only been a week in a camp or whatever it may be, and he's been getting a lot of recognition. And I feel like he's going to play a 7-8 role. Like, he'll come in off the bench and play some pretty quality minutes. I think because if they want to make a playoff push this year, and God knows what the season's going to look like with COVID and everything that's going on, rest is going to be key for Kyle Lowry going down the stretch. I think that this year is going to be the first time you paid Freddie. You paid Freddie handsomely to be starting PG, man. Like, you got him going to be running that offense for sure. But now you've got a good complementary piece in Flynn that might play that, what I would assume probably like 15 minutes a game.
Probably 15, 18 minutes a game. And if there's foul trouble, 20, which is where he's going to get his exposure and grow.
Well, Kyle fouls a lot, but that's what happens when you're a 6'0" point guard in the NBA.
I had young Kyle Lowry. Just don't forget that. So when I was watching him be a cannonball down the lane and didn't have his 3-point developed yet, he was just constantly driving it. And then he's always all over everybody fouling. We had to play oh man, what's his name? This is gonna date me a little bit. He was old Syracuse point guard. Is Johnny Flynn? We had Flynn backing him up. We had Flynn starting a couple games where he would average 15 minutes, and that was terrible. So, but yeah. Back in the day.
That's the biggest fleecing in Raptor. End up being Raptor history because Kyle Lowry has been the greatest Raptor of all time. But he got traded for Aaron Gray.
Yep.
What a trade! What a fleece! Yep. People forget about that. So that was a Brian Colangelo move when Brian Colangelo was running our organization to the fucking ground. But he did get that one right. I'll give him that one. He got one. One out of. Well, a lot because he drafted Andrea Bargnani.
Take 10 seconds, Brian. Thank you so much.
he's sitting there somewhere. Ryan Cloud was like, I got Kyle Lowry. I won them the NBA championship. No big deal. Smoking cigars somewhere in Philly. Man, he is one of the worst GMs of all time. Man, the other thing I wanted to get into today, we had a couple other things. I'm just gonna pull it up here out of my notes, and all of a sudden they disappeared. Yeah, last night we got to watch a little Thursday night football. Good game. Here's what couple things. Cam Akers, is he for real now?
Yeah, I've been about Cam Akers all year. It's just a matter of him getting the opportunity and staying healthy. And so now you got to see it all. And Cam Akers just exploded
Good God.
in the first quarter and just told everybody, if you didn't, all you fantasy football players, you fucked up this week because I'm sitting on your bench. That's all it was.
I started him this week. Oh my God.
Beautiful.
Oh.
And I told you to start him. I knew Cam at the end of the year was going to be fantastic. And yeah, absolutely. Cam Akers is for real. I drafted him like he was for real. And I'm one of those that with all the COVID and injuries, I had to drop him eventually, but it's one of the losses of this year that I severely regret. But yeah, he's the real deal, man. When he was drafted and we had the NFL draft show, just showing his highlights and how he was going to fit in the system, he would never replace Todd Gurley because he's a different type of running back.
Right.
But with the complement of Malcolm Brown being able to take some of those bulldozing carries, Cam Akers was going to be a guy to watch in the next couple of years. But he's going to be able to end this year. And just for Denny Lennon, the COVID trifecta, now I'm all about that. Now I want to see it. Los Angeles Rams, I want to see the run. I want to see the COVID trifecta in LA.
Shout out to our boy DL. He absolutely blew my mind on ITL. It was great. Yeah, man, they're scary good. Cam Akers is he played 93% of snaps last night, which is pretty much unheard of in the NFL, especially as a running back. When they were a running back by committee with
Right.
Malcolm Brown and Henderson as well. And it just seems like the last couple of weeks, Akers was at 60, and then he was at 65, and this week he's at 93. So if you do have him in your starting fantasy league, this is a fantasy base, you're playing him for the rest of the year, because
Absolutely.
now that Sean McAfee sees that he's got a stud back there, he is all day going to use a run game. And I will give credit to the Rams wide receivers. They're very good at blocking. I didn't realize how good Robert Woods is at the edge, blocking and making holes. Like Cooper Kupp does the inside jobs because he's a little bit smaller, but like Robert Woods, man, he freed up a lot of space last night when I was watching that game. And that O-line is tremendous too. So the only thing that I really worry about them, and we're talking about the trifecta, the only inconsistent I have there is Jared Goff. Like I'm still not sold on Jared Goff winning you a Super Bowl. He's a good quarterback, but I just don't think he has. We always talk about quarterbacks that have the it factor. He lacks that for me. Even last night, like, even though it was a blowout after the first half, which, interception, pick six, like, that's not on them. But Jared Goff just lacked the ability to find receivers that were just there. Like he had that overthrow to Woods, and it was a free 20-yard play. Like Woods had that, and he just right to the sidelines. I'm like, what are you doing? Is that just me?
No. He's a true system quarterback. I mean, if you think about how you label quarterbacks are successful or not successful, he's one of those, similar to Nick Foles. If you have the right system, you can really make him look fantastic. But if you have to put him in dire situations, you kind of grit your teeth and think, I hope he has it. And the great way that the Rams have been able to mask an average passing game is having an outstanding running game. And that's been their bread and butter, and it starts at the line. I remember an old, I don't know if it was Hard Knocks or preseason clip, but they spend 40% of their time in offseason blocking. I don't know if you know that, but they spend 40%.
Astronomical amount.
Yeah, an astronomical. It's like 40% of their preseason and offseason OTAs are spent blocking techniques, blocking formations, and then the actual technique of blocking in a pattern. I don't know. It was like 5 different blocking things that they focus on, and then they focus on everything else. And I thought that's just what the Rams do. They want to establish the trenches. They want to make sure they win there and that they have openings, and then they're going to do everything out of the run. So, I mean, that's why they love running the tight end sets, because they can actually block off the end, and then if they need to, they can run that run pass option and then catch them running. Jared Everett's like a stud.
Him and Higbee both. Him and Higbee just know how to block. Like Higbee might be a disappointment for you in fantasy, but God, on the field, he's a great addition for that line. Basically, he's just an extra guy.
That's it.
Yeah, it's the Rams are for real, folks. They are. They're going to be a good team. You know, they're definitely going to win. I think they're going to win that division now because they've split the home and home with Seattle, and they got him in the last week of the year. So I think that division's definitely theirs. Seattle doesn't scare me. It just seems like Danger Russ isn't that guy right now. Especially watching it last week, he should have absolutely beat the hell out of the Giants. And the one thing with Russ is we always see this with him. He has immaculate starts, right? Like the Seahawks, they'll go 7-3 or 7-2 or 8-1 or whatever it may be. But then you're like, oh, why are they 8-4? Why are they 8-5? Why are they 9-5? That seems weird. Like he just loses that ability. And right now, this year, the focus has obviously been DK Metcalf. Like that offense is based around DK. The other kind of problem I got with it now is that in that last game with the Giants, the criticism was he's not been able to find other guys in the offense to utilize. He's just been focusing on one guy. But, and that's where you could tell that he was scrambling. He was trying to get Lockett going. He tried to get Carson going. He tried to get who's their tight end right now? I can't remember. I can't even remember. They've gone.
You're talking about Wood Disley or Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen.
Yeah, no, Disley was starting. Disley's starting because Olsen's
Disley's starting. Yeah.
Yeah. So Disley, like even trying to get him involved in the offense because Seahawks have never really had a tight end since like Luke Wilson. So it's just Wilson. And not even Luke Wilson was great.
I know.
It's just like he looked like he was trying to think about things way too much. So if you're a Seattle fan, and I'm going to throw this out to you right now, just a question. Do you continue to just focus on DK or do you try to do what he did last game and try to, explore other options?
You explore other options, but DK is dynamic enough to carry you in games. He has that Julio-esque to him where, Matt Ryan would hit him for 14 catches or Michael Thomas gets the 18 catch game. He has that, but it's not consistent. And so when DK is off where he faces a big corner that has a shadow over him and he can't get around it, then you're going to need those Lockets to come out. You're going to need your line. Chris Carson needs to step up. And you're going to need to have other assets come in. I just, if you're a Seattle fan, your worry is that your defense is so bad that you're not going to, if Russ is off and your defense is bad, one game in the playoffs, it's over. Like there is no making up with this team. Russ will not pull you out of the fire this year. If that defense is giving up 3 straight touchdowns, you're down 21-3 in the second quarter. Like you're not winning that game. You don't have a chance. And so that's what you have to worry is Pete Carroll needs to go back to his roots where he always said, I'm run, then throw in the pass, do the play action, eat the clock because your defense is that bad, which is how Dallas approached it this year because they realized their defense was
We're bad against the run. They're bad against the pass.
Yeah, they're
like
terrible.
Real bad.
Terrible against, like some people are starting Sam Darnold this week for fantasy football.
That is nuts. But again, I will say this little disclaimer when it comes to fantasy. Sam Darnold in 2 weeks has been pretty good.
Yeah, he's been pretty good. He's not starting for me, but he's pretty good.
He's just like if you have a super flex league, he's not a bad guy to have in the super flex spot. Like he has. There's so much drama with Sam Darnold right now, but like I feel like Sam Darnold's playing really well because he's going to get a contract somewhere else because he's not going to be there next year.
Like if something were to happen next week and you needed me to come on for an emergency episode and I said, hey, Jamison Crowder, 12 catches, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns, you'd be like, yeah, I saw that last week. I figured that was going to happen because that's how bad Seattle is.
Yeah, no, and if you do have Jamison Crowder, immediate start. Denzel Mims is out.
Should be a start.
Yeah, should be a start anyways in most of your leagues. He's just a PPR guy. You know, he could put up 40 yards, but he might have like 13 catches on those 40 yards.
I mean, some of them who started him had 3 dead spurn weeks, but get over it. He's going to come back and have the end of the year and be
he's been feasting now. He's had 2 back-to-back games with at least 2 touchdowns. So, and Sam Darnold loves him. So Sam Darnold's also auditioning to the NFL right now. And
yes, he is.
He's proving that, regardless of his shoulder problems, he can still play. I mean, they were in that game against the Raiders. I mean, shitty secondary blew that game. And that's why Greg Williams is no longer with the team. But I mean, he kept them in the game. I watched that game, to be honest, to the end. And I was like, man, the Jets might win this thing, and like Darnold didn't look bad. Yeah, and I feel so bad for him because obviously Darnold is a winning quarterback. I mean, he's always been that way. Even in college, he was such a good quarterback, man. That's the reason why he went first overall. Like, he is a stud, right? Like, he is a bona fide stud. And the thing is, he's stuck in an offense that doesn't have any weapons besides Jamison Crowder. You've got a 37-year-old running back. I mean, it's tough. And you got Adam Gase as your offensive coordinator and head coach. So this season's done. Like I said, the rest of the season for the Jets is an audition tape for everybody on that team. I don't think anybody's not exposed at this point. Even Jamison Crowder. I mean, he's a good guy, but I feel like if you're getting Trevor Lawrence, you're going to keep Crowder, because I feel like that'll be a nasty combo if you have that going into next year. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about while we're still talking about football,
before we switch, I want to do a shout out to Davis. I thought this after we said it, but Jimmy Graham was also in Seattle. I just felt Jimmy Graham kind of fell off after
underutilized.
Yeah, and it wasn't really a big acquisition. And they tried they tried to make it work, but it wasn't like he wasn't a perennial Pro Bowler in Seattle.
Pete Carroll offense doesn't use a tight end. It's just that simple, unless you're blocking. And Jimmy Graham, as good as he is not a blocking tight end. He's big. He's just not a good blocker. He's got great hands when it comes down to being in the 10-yard line. I mean, Chicago, for a while there, Chicago was really getting to utilize him, and then they just stopped, and they've been putting Komet in every single play, it seems, which is just really weird. Jimmy Graham, man, had a couple good seasons, but again, you had Drew Brees as a quarterback in his prime, like Drew Brees prime, getting up there. And I mean, Jimmy Graham's what, 6'9"? Like he's a huge.
He's up there. He's a big guy.
He's a massive guy, So Jimmy Graham's career is pretty much toast, I think, or at this point. I mean, he went to Chicago to die. It sounds terrible. He
hasn't been terrible, though. For some people, he was a top 12 tight end. So, I mean, you got your money's worth.
If we look into next year, and this is the other kind of couple questions I had for you. Obviously, we know a couple quarterbacks that are auditioning for new teams next year. We talked about Sam Darnold. Now we'll talk about Mitch Trubisky, because he is obviously done in Chicago. We can all agree that with Nick Foles' contract, with one more year, they're probably going to ride that out.
I know where he's going.
Where do you think he's going?
I know where he's going. Like I'm almost.
Where's Trubisky going?
Cincinnati.
Really?
They need a substitute teacher in Cincinnati while Joe Burrow is coming back from his recovery. He may come back next season. At the end, he may just skip the whole season.
I think it's going to be a skip, to be honest.
So if he skips and Mitch wants a full team, full season, they don't care about what wins they get, because they get another high draft pick. Just add more talent to that roster. And you got Joe Mixon still. Mitch Trubisky's in Cincinnati, and he's going to showcase a full season of what he can do. And if he doesn't, then they put in back their regular backups, and you put in Finley, and you have him right out that way. But
would you say Trubisky is having the Sanchez effect right now, like the Mark Sanchez effect?
Absolutely.
I think they're both the same quarterback. I really do. Like, Mark Sanchez's career is pretty much the exact same as Mitch Trubisky's is heading right now. Like, Trubisky, like I don't disagree with your take of him going to Cincinnati. He might go somewhere else that's going to offer him a little bit more money. But we
could see a swap here. We could see a Jet Bear swap.
Really could.
Sam Darnold could be in Chicago, and Mitch Trubisky could be a New York Jet.
I think Chicago wants Sam Darnold with that offense and with the receivers that they have on that team. I mean, that's a pass first offense, folks. They got some ballers over there. I mean, they got Robinson, who is a nightmare matchup for most guys. He's just so elusive off his routes. And then you've got Mooney, who could end up being a fairly decent receiver. We've seen it at spurts this year. And then you factor in, I like when they use Cordell Patterson out of the backfield. I really do. I like, he's just like another Swiss utility knife, right? Like, he's just an explosive player. And you put Sam Darnold out there, who's a pass first quarterback. That could be a fun offense. I mean, they don't want to
if Dak isn't available,
right. They don't want to rely on David Montgomery. Like, they don't want to have to rely on the run game. Like, Montgomery's a very good blocking back as well. If you ever watch some of his tape, he's good at it, but he's just not a good possession guy. He's not going to get you what you want every game. So if I'm the Bears, I'm actually drafting a running back this year. Hot take. Just looking at that way.
I'm not there yet. I think he's Melvin Gordon 2.0, but I don't think they're drafting a running back yet. But Chicago, they thought they had it all with Nick Foles. Matter of fact, they sold me on Foles in the offseason. I thought Foles was going to fit. I really did think. I thought it was a good fit. But if they give up on that, then absolutely Darnold. If Dallas sinks down to a top 3 pick or a top 4 pick, I think whatever the lowest is, and they're saying I'm going to go quarterback, and Fields is headed to Dallas, or Lawrence, something happens with Lawrence and he drops, Jerry's picking one of them. So then, and Dak's gone, then you start making Dak to Chicago, I think makes them instant contenders. I mean,
that's first quarterback
to me.
Yep. And the thing is, people don't give Dak a lot of credit. I mean, look at what he was doing before he left. I mean, 1,700 yards in 3.5 games, I guess. That's impressive, folks, because if you look at some quarterbacks that are starting now, they're barely hitting the 3,000 mark.
Right.
So God knows what he would have done with a full season. And the hardest part that I have with circling back to the Prescott thing is with the Cowboys, you can't franchise tag him again. You can, but then again, what if he gets hurt again? Now he's just this year he banked on himself. He banked on himself to make a contract, which never should have been the situation to begin with. They should have just paid him outright. But now we're in a weird conundrum where it's like, all right, do you pay Dak what he's asking? Because you see how important he is to an offense without him being there. So it's like, do you pay the guy $38-39 million? Because face it, folks, we can joke about it. That's what he's going to ask for.
Right.
And he's going to be like, look at what's happened since I've left. Pretty big statistic. I'm the best player on this team without a doubt.
Look, Dak Prescott's going to be a Cowboy. I don't have any doubt about it. But if we had to say hypotheticals, and I think Dak to Chicago is like a puzzle piece made. But Dak has been super impressive. Before this season, I was 50-50 on whether the Cowboys made Dak or Dak made the Cowboys. Now I'm 100% sold Dak makes the Cowboys.
Yep.
So,
yep. You've seen the production from everybody else tail off, besides Amari Cooper, I guess, because
which surprised me. It's the most silent, productive season of his career because I had no idea.
Everybody's like, oh, he's just been so bad. I'm like, has anybody watched a game? This guy's averaging 78 yards a game with a backup quarterback, like, and a touchdown a game. And you're just like, what is he putting up career? He's putting up career numbers.
Surprised the hell out of me.
Yeah. And like, I looked at it the other day. It's like, statistically speaking, this could end up being his most successsul season as a wide receiver. And I was like, how?
Hilarious. Yeah. It's hilarious.
It's nuts because you brought in CeeDee Lamb, who's played some really big minutes and he's played really well, I think, as a rookie. I mean, Michael Gallup's production has obviously fallen off the charts as compared to last year because, again, Dak and Gallup have that real deep touch, right? When Dak wants to go deep, he always goes Gallup's route. Like, you always see it. But his production's obviously slipped off. He had a good game last week, 40 yards, a tutty, not a bad day. But yeah, at the end of the day, man, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the quarterback carousel that's going to happen in the NFL when it comes to next offseason, because there's, Big Ben could retire. If Philly's done with Carson Wentz, I see Philly getting some pretty good investment in return to have him go to Pittsburgh. And I mean, that's one team that can afford to have him. So there's that. Cap comes into play big time because they guaranteed Carson Wentz $50 million. Let's not forget that, folks. That's locked up money. That's going straight to his piggy bank account when he's done, no matter what. So they got a bit of a conundrum on their hands in Philly. It's going to be interesting.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, and they have no receive. Well, here's the thing: they do have a receiving core, and I'll defend them because I feel like they've just been forgotten about. A lot of weeks you try to see them use Bart Scott or Miles Sanders quite a bit, and then they completely forget about it, and they're doing the check down thing. Plus, that O-line is decimated. Jason Peters is your best blocker, and he himself is absolutely washed. So, I mean, they're at the situation where they just kind of have to redo it, and Carson Wentz might be the guy who gets traded for a couple of picks, and that's how they start building it with Jalen Hurts. That's just how I look at it in Pittsburgh.
I think Carson stays, but definitely the O-line has to be looked at again, and I think it's ranked 32 in the league, even worse than the Cowboys.
Yeah,
which is surprising.
Now, again, going back to the Thursday night game, we saw how good St. Louis was, but on the other side of the ball,
Los Angeles.
Oh, Los Angeles, sorry.
That's okay.
On the other side, St. Louis Rams. I knew it was going to happen. You and the Redskins.
It happens
all the time. Getting canceled. Simmo and Sutton, 4 episodes deep, we're getting canceled. Patriots, they're in trouble. And I took them last week. Favorable matchup. I did not take them this week. They still got Gilmore, one of the best defensive players. I think, you look at that team and they got some potential in the D, but when you're out there getting fleeced because your offense can't do anything, right. Are we done with Cam Newton? I'm done with Cam Newton.
Yeah, Cam's done. I don't think you can use Cam the same way anymore. It might be a Jalen Hurts role where you bring Cam in for 6 to 8 plays and you're able to run the Wildcat with him and he can run the run pass option. But I don't think he's a starting caliber quarterback right now. I'm not going to overreact to one game because they just won 45-0, right? Just the other day.
Yeah, but he only put up 69 yards. So
but how you use them, right? How you use them. And so, no, I don't think Cam is a starting quarterback right now. I think he's got a lot of mechanic issues, especially through all the injuries. Yeah,
I think he's learning how to play quarterback again. That sounds weird to say, but he really has been decimated throughout his career with injuries. And going into this offseason, I think the Patriots were like, well, it's a low risk signing for us. You know, you look at his bank account, it's not really anything crazy. It's basically bonus incentives. But watching that game last night, and I'll shout out to Steve. There was a couple plays that they got boo-booed on. I mean, there was a hold on Woods on a couple of plays, but I mean, it shouldn't rely on a couple of plays to win a game. The thing is, the offense is a hot mess. It's top to
It
bottom.
is.
The offense is in a lot of trouble. And I think you could tell on the sidelines, Bill Belichick was just out of his mind, frustrated for the first time in a very long time. You could see him breaking down on the sidelines. I would say Cam's inability to throw the football has to be the biggest regression in there. You know what I mean? It's a tough situation for them. Cam is a great quarterback. I mean, but he's got, you look at the weapons that they have. N'Keal Harry, meh, average. Edelman, meh. He's pretty much on the tail end of his career. I mean, they don't have a tight end. They haven't had a tight end in like since the Hernandez days, like Gronk Hernandez, rest in peace. What a terrible human being, but nonetheless, who getting canceled quick here now. But at the end of the day, man, New England's in a lot of trouble. Their defense, like I said, Stephen Gilmore, as long as he's there, that's a good decor. Like they're not a bad. I'm not taking away from that. They got some great pieces. Offensively, they're a disaster. The O-line can't help Cam at all. Cam got sacked 6 times last night, and that's also a lot of inability on Cam's part to not know the offense. I just think he's struggling. Having COVID maybe has plagued him. Those ribs when he gets, he's been hit a lot this year. Maybe that's taken a lot out of his sales, but I will say this: if I am Bill Belichick, I know they're 6-7 right now, and we all know that Belichick's legacy is I'm the best of all time, right? And he doesn't like losing. And let's face it, that's the first time since 2002 that they've had a losing season. Do you just say, all right, Cam, we're done this year. Thank you. And we know we're not making the playoffs now. Wild card's completely out of the question. Do you start with Stidham?
No, you ride Superman all the way through because you made a commitment. But I will say this: he's going to try to finish with a winning record with Cam. He's going to try to prove to everybody because your other counterpart, Tom Brady's having a phenomenal season down in Tampa Bay, and so you're trying to save some face. Now, if he goes with Cam and rides Cam and they finish 6-10, that's a whole different conversation. But he will ride the Cam train all the way to the end. I guarantee it. And then he'll put in Stidham in the second quarter of one game, third quarter if Cam starts struggling, but he'll run a game plan through Cam and start Cam. Cam's a guy. And I like what you said about their offensive pieces. Jacoby Meyer and N'Keal Harry and Damian Harris. They're not terrible pieces, but I don't think they're bona fide starters on other teams.
On a lot of teams.
Yeah, and so I think that's where you have to see. And Sony Michel was a bust, so I mean he'll be out this year, and so. It took a lot of swings with different players, and they just didn't hit. So you got to go back to the drawing board. I would say something about the tight end, but they've never needed the tight end other than Gronk, because Gronk was always a guy. But you bring in blocking tight ends for that purpose because you want to establish the run and then mix up passes here and there, and you run the clock down and you're clutch because you're the Patriots. So it just didn't work out this year. So
to put this into perspective, folks, to wrap all of this up, 2002 was the last time the Patriots had a losing season. The number one song in the world was Eminem's "Lose Yourself." So there you go. That's a little bit of history for you. That's going to do it for us this week, man. Thank you so much for filling in for my boy Simmo, wherever he is. I know he's having a lot of fun, but Ernest, this is a pleasure to have you on, man. And how can people follow you, dude?
Yep, at Into the Lab Pod is our podcast. Andrew's on there every week. We do our NFL picks, have great guests, and do some trivia stuff, give some prizes to our listeners. That's on Wednesday nights live, and then we release Friday mornings. And then my personal at handle, which is brand new, is at Doc E Future PhD. You see all the books behind me, but trying to finish off that dissertation and get that official doctor title.
Nerd.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, that's where you can follow us. So at Into the Lab Pod, at Doc E Future PhD. But it was a pleasure to come on, man. Always excited.
Yeah, and you can follow me at Andrew Kahn, Kaun. Officially, just want to say this. I feel like the oldest dude in the Twitterverse because people have thousands of followers. I officially hit 100. So we are locked and loaded. We are fired up about Twitter nowadays. I've been on Twitter for 6 years. I don't know how the hell I have 100 people. I'm just a horrible piss poor promoter when it comes to Twitter. But yeah, follow me at Andrew Kahn. Also, you can follow us, the Boomtown Pod, on Facebook. We just released the latest episode about addiction, sobriety, and so many other things.
Fantastic episode.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. And we're joined by the General Steve Reisner on that one, talking about some of the stuff that he went through. The guy's had a pretty hard knock life, but I feel like we got a great brotherhood at BCMG. And again, I also want to say a quick shout out to our sponsors at Living My Best Cigar Life, livingmybestcigarlife.com, man. Humidors, you name it. Cigars, the boys. I can't wait till we're all there
Me
and
too.
just able to have a round discussion, having a couple stogies. Woo! It's going to be fantastic. But their shop looks unbelievable, by the way. If you want to check them out, find them at My Best Cigar Life on Twitter as well. That's going to do it for us. This is episode 4. Thank you so much for tuning in, and much love, Ernest. Thank you so much, my man.
Hey, absolutely. Happy holidays, everybody.